Look, that one's on. That was just with an empty feeder. Didn't even fill the feeder. The great thing about lots of commercials up and down the country is that they usually have one thing in common, and that is pellets. We get asked lots of questions about, can we recommend certain baits if you're heading off to a new venue and that sort of thing. When that's the scenario for myself in particular, I generally focus everything around pellets, and that's exactly what I'm going to be fishing with today. I'm already set up at the peg. I'm going to be fishing with a method feeder, and all I've got on my side tray are pellets in one or two variations and a little bit of ground bait. I've got 3 different areas of the swim to target, so let's get fishing. So the bait tray couldn't be much simpler. All I've got on here are pellets. I've got a little bit of ground bait as well. I'm going to be using the method feeder. I've already had a couple of fish. I've only had 2 casts out there. I am getting lots of liners. This is September, but there are still fish up in the water, so you are getting liners. It's not very deep where I'm fishing. I've got micros. They're already soaked. They are fishery pellets that you have to use here. So these are fishery 2 mils or micros. I've got some 6 mil hard pellets as well. I've got some 4 mil pellets, and then I've got a combination of the micros and the ground bait, and I'll talk you through all those bits and bobs in a little while, but let's see if we can catch another one. Well, that didn't take long. Look what we've got. I didn't expect that. It just shows you, you never know what you're going to catch on pellets on these commercials. How about that for a beautiful, like a little bar of soap. A little tench. Nearly pull the rod in. Beautiful. It's great when you don't know what you're going to catch, isn't it? I was just on a 6 mil hard pellet. So let me just show you how I'm loading the feeder. So all I'm doing, I've got a 15 gram normal method feeder on and a 6 mil pellet. Simple as that. And all I'm doing is, at the moment, just to kick off, I've got this combination of pellets and ground bait. I'm just putting a few pellets in the top there, making a little indentation. I can lay my hook bait in there and then pop a few more pellets over the top. I'm not filling it up. I don't want to be putting too many in at this stage. Press the mould, and there we go. That's the loaded method feeder, and that's all I'm doing. I like to always give it an extra squeeze just to make sure the pellets aren't going to come off. And then all we're doing is just underarming it out to that 12 metre line, not clipped up, and then I can loose feed easily over the top. Well, I'm getting quite a few indications out there, but I think we should be catching more. Those indications, I think we should be turning them into fish. I know there are some fish cruising about on the top, so I'm going to change the approach now. I'm actually just going to put pellets around the feeder just to see if that makes any difference. There was no messing about with that one then, was there? This one ran straight out, and now he's kiting round to my left. I've just made a switch actually. The ground bait and pellet wasn't, the combination wasn't working. I was getting liners, there were obviously fish there, but for some reason I just couldn't catch it. I only caught that tench and another F1. Just switched to just pellets now, and that's first cast with just pellets, so we'll see if that's what's going to be a better way of presenting it. Yeah, he's got lots of power left in him. That was in the bottom lip, that one. You see that size 16 hook. It's just alright for these sorts of fish with a 6 mil pellet. Really good conditioned fish. So we'll see if pellets around the feeder and no ground bait is the way to go. When your hands are wet, it's always easier to get a band round a pellet with a banding tool. I don't always need one, to be honest. Some people don't need them, but when your hands are wet, it does make the job much easier. So all I'm doing now is exactly the same, loading the feeder, but with pellets. These have dried out a little bit actually, so I'm just going to give them a dampen down once I've got this out there. I think this will be enough to get enough dampness on these to get this one out there. just about. We'll have to dampen them off. They have dried out quite a lot actually. That's because I've been doing other things. So I'll just get that out to that line, which is about 12 metres, something like that. Now the 3 spots that I'm fishing are obviously that 12 metre line where I can easily loose feed 6mm pellets. I'm not loose feeding too many. I just flick them right where my feeder's going. Now the left hand margin swim, which I'm fishing, or I'm going to be fishing, down this side here, I'm feeding with little balls of micro pellets. So these are the same soaked micro pellets, and when you squeeze them into balls like that, you can easily just flick them down that margin for later on. And this right hand margin I'm actually feeding with hard 4mm fishery pellets, and I could just flick them with my right hand down that margin and just build that line up for later on. I'm getting liners all the time. There are obviously fish moving around out there. It's not very deep, but obviously you only really want to be picking up when you're sure that it's a bite and the fish is on. There we go. There's another one. Much better with pellets. The bites are coming quicker as well. That's only been in a minute and a half maybe. We're on another run then. I thought he was ready for the net then, but he's decided to put up a bit more of a fight. I've got a size 14 on now instead of a 16. It hasn't made any difference, not today anyway. There we go. Bit of a shuffle. Definitely the biggest of the day so far. Beautiful fish, that one. In good condition as well. I'm using the fine mesh net today. Reason for that is because it's much more friendly on your hair rigs, so they can't get caught in here. Just a little bit of a fine detail. Sometimes the nets with bigger holes in can break off your hair rigs, so if that's a problem you've been having, then that might be the type of net that you need. It's a heavy fish, that one. Fantastic. Off you go, mate. Now, as regards preparing the bait for this session, it really couldn't be much easier. Obviously the fishery pellets are straight out the bag. I've got 6mm, I've got 4mm, but then I've got some micro pellets as well. They are obviously fishery micros. They will literally just soaked in lake water for a couple of minutes. I drain the water off, but more importantly then, the water that I drain off I keep, because that's the water that I actually use to mix the ground bait. We're already using an expander or a pellet based ground bait anyway, and obviously using that water, which is loaded with the flavours of the fishery pellets, just gives your ground bait that extra bit of a boost. Always put the ground bait through a sieve so it's nice and fine, and I leave that separate because I can add that to some of the pellets, or by keeping it separate I can actually try just ground bait around the feeder on its own. That's another fish on the pellet. We've got loads of energy, that one. They're a beautiful stamp fish, aren't they? They're coming really quickly, and that was literally only in about a minute, that's all. And you can't catch them as quick as that. That's how you can easily rack a weight up of them, but very typical of lots of fisheries when you're fishing with pellets. We've caught quite a few fish out there. I've seen 1 or 2 fish moving down this margin, not over where I'm feeding, but between me and where I'm feeding. But I find it hard to believe that if there are fish here that there aren't going to be some on that feed. So I'm just going to put one more final little nugget of pellet down that margin, and then I'm just going to give that a few more minutes before I go on it. But when I go on it, I'm going to try it with a little trick that I learnt on a venue near to where I live, where you can nick 1 or 2 early fish before your peg gets too much feed in it, because that can happen, and obviously that can lead to line bites and that sort of thing. So I'm going to have a sneaky look down this left hand side first. I think that one's on. That was just with an empty feeder, didn't even fill the feeder. Just fished it very much unlike a method feeder, just to see if there was one there. I think that's answered the question, hasn't it? No messing, obviously just nailed that 6mm pellet without any feed around the method feeder. Just shows you just thinking outside the box sometimes, because that's what you'd do on a pole, wouldn't you? You just lower it in with just a hook bait on. Just scrappy fish, this one. Come on, mate. Brilliant, straight away. Just shows you that setting that line up for all that time just shows that you can have fish there waiting for you. Just hooked in the top of its top lip. Fantastic condition, that one, isn't it? Beautiful. But there are obviously one or two there. Let's see if we can nick another one. Watch this, it went straight away last time, didn't it? I don't want to have too tight. There we go. Got it. Took it straight away. How about that? I think that one's on, don't you? That's when you need to have the right rod rest and the right grip for your butt of your rod as well, because that's how you easily lose tattle. Great fun on these bomb rods as well. That's a carp as well, that one. Yeah, great fun on these bomb rods. Steady on, mate. That's it. How fast did that go off? One of the fastest bites we've had, I think, today, that one. Feels a good fish. Trying to get under this bank. Just got him away then. There could be roots and all sorts down there. You've got to be careful, obviously, when you're fishing near trees like this. Look at that. Bigger than I thought. Heavier than I thought. That's what I mean. Still on a 6mm banded pellet. That's all I've fished today. With those 2mm pellets, untreated as well. Just fish with them out the bag, soaked. No additives today. I've definitely seen an increase in the weight of the fish now down this left hand margin. Calm down, mate. I can feel this one grating against probably roots or whatever there are down there. But yeah, the better fish have definitely turned up now. I haven't really changed anything. I've cut back on the feed a little bit, just pouring less feed actually around the method feeder itself. But to be fair, I'm pretty sure it's just the time of day, and that's why timing is so important when you're tackling the margins. Ah, what a pretty fish to finish on. Come on, mate. Got him. Well, that's a fantastic fish to finish on. It's been all about pellets today. As you know, it's an inexpensive way of fishing, and it just shows that sometimes you can keep it really, really nice and simple. You can have a fantastic day's fishing. You can catch some beautiful fish as well. Hope you've enjoyed this session. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.